So, Greg, it sounds like history is repeating itself. And you look at history, it sounds like the same mistakes were just forgotten over time. And it looks like, humanity believes, in this case, once again, we could just print money out of nothing and everything will be all right. And then the consequences of that, whether, it's the moral decay of society, everyone says the hidden tax of inflation, things get cheaper, they don't last as long. There's the famous example of the refrigerator that if you bought in 1950, that thing's still working today. And if you buy like a brand new Samsung refrigerator, that thing won't last 2 years. So that being said, we're clearly going through a cycle. Some people buy into the fourth turning theory. Where does Bitcoin fit in all this? Is Bitcoin positioned? Did it come in a time where we could finally break that cycle in humanity and we could just go on to a sound money standard? And the problem is that every time humanity goes onto a sound money standard, they start cutting corners a little bit, right? We get on a gold standard. The founding fathers learned this the hard way in the United States. And there's a lot of famous quotes by, George Washington talking about how terrible fiat money is. It's because they experienced it themselves, right? So do you believe, it's a two-pronged question. Is Bitcoin going to break that cycle, and are governments going to allow that cycle to be broken? Because as Lawrence so beautifully said about last week, he said that that they would love to keep the privilege of being able to create a money for free that everybody else has to work for, and the tremendous amount of power from having that privilege as well. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, firstly, a shout out to my friend Larry Lepard. He is a great thinker. He like me, we had the benefit. I will still not trade in my education at Cornell University because I actually thought I got my money's worth, and I probably think, and I can't speak for him, but Lawrence got his money's worth at Harvard in the time that we schooled ourselves. When I say schooled ourselves, chose to go to the schools. The question about Bitcoin breaking the cycle, here's what I've said before, and I hope that you will appreciate this. When I graduated from Cornell, I was lucky enough to get a job back in Canada. I could have worked on Wall Street. I decided to stay in or return to Canada to work at Canada's largest financial institution. And the Royal Bank of Canada was actually technically insolvent at that time because of its Latin American debt exposure, okay? And very simply, in the late 1980s, because all global banks had lent too much money in US dollars, they'd lent too much money to third world or developing nations, and those US dollar loans could not be paid back because a US dollar, strengthening US dollar, caused those loan obligations to be so excessive that they couldn't pay them back, i.e. queue up the same situation that we have today, 35 years later. In 1988, my first job right out of Cornell, I went to the CFO and I said, oh my God, we have a problem here. The Royal Bank of Canada, Canada's largest bank, is insolvent, which is to say, if we had marked down the value of the loans we'd made to these countries to the trading price of the loans in the secondary market, the loan losses, which would have come out of our book value of equity, would have caused the book value of equity to go below zero. Holy moly, Nico. I had spent 6 years going to school, studying the fiat system, and they never told me. They have never told me that financial institutions are regularly insolvent as a function of the economic cycle. Why? Because they use so much leverage. So will Bitcoin, coming back to your first question, will Bitcoin break the cycle? Bitcoin can help level the cycle. Okay, so the cycle goes like this. Can Bitcoin level the highs and the lows? Yes, in my opinion. Will it fix it? That is to be determined. So I hope you appreciate. I don't have 100% clarity on this, but I do know that Bitcoin can help the stupidity of the fiat cycle that causes banks to be regularly insolvent. Okay, so that's a good thing. Yes, Bitcoin can help. Will it fix it? Hard to say, but it's our best chance. I don't see any other tool that will help fix the system like Bitcoin can fix. Then the second part of your question, so Bitcoin's the only solution that I see right now. Is it gonna fix it? Dang, I don't know, but it's where all my hope goes because there's nothing left. There's no other part of the system that can fix the fiat Ponzi. The second part of your question, will governments allow Bitcoin to succeed? And I'm going to come out very clearly and say there will be governments that embrace Bitcoin and governments that resist Bitcoin. And the governments that embrace Bitcoin, in my opinion, will be the winners. And the governments that resist Bitcoin will play their paths to destruction. So, very smart young man out of Boston, Jason Lowry, friend of mine. I've met him in person, who's working for the US Space Force. I think he could be the smartest guy I've met in the Bitcoin community so far. And that's not to say or to detract from the likes of a Jeff Booth or James Lavish or Larry Lepard. All of these guys are brilliant. And I will say, if I'm the smartest guy in the room ever, go find another room, okay? I'm going to look for another room because I better not be the smartest guy in the room. If I'm the smartest guy in the room, we're in big trouble. All I do is try and tell the truth and take the information that I lucky enough to decipher from these very smart other people. So Jason Lowry thinks that there's governments that will embrace Bitcoin. They will be the winners. And if we can't convince the most freedom-loving government of the world, which still is the United States of America, if we can't convince them that Bitcoin is freedom and Bitcoin is hope, well, the other countries that do embrace Bitcoin will flip in the world order, and the days of the USA as being, the guiding light for everyone else in the world, well, sorry, you lost your status. And unfortunately, that typically happens around every 100 years. And it's been about 100 years since the USA has been, the global reserve currency. So if you go by statistics, there should be a flippening. I don't want that to be the case. And by the way, you guys know I live in Canada, right? So I live in Canada and I'm pitching for the USA because Canada's a rounding error. Like, just sweep Canada off the edge of the desk. We do not matter. Even though we are a G7 country, which means we are in the top 7 economies of the world, we're still not bigger than California. California is a bigger economy than Canada. So I want the USA to succeed, okay? I've gone to school there. You guys know that. I love freedom. You guys know that. I believe the USA is still the last remaining bastion of freedom in the world. I want the USA to adopt Bitcoin. Is it possible that they, well, yeah, I'd say it's even more likely that they don't than they do. But the people that think they should is growing all the time. You have DeSantis, you have Cynthia Lummis, you have all these politicians in the USA that understand the advantages of sound money. Not to mention smart money managers like Larry Lepard, who's pitching it to his clients. And even it's like, you got to chip away at this over time. So I want you guys to understand that even though I'm Canadian, I'm absolutely rooting for the United States, because if the USA fails, Canada doesn't have a chance. That's absolutely true. And if Canada fails, well, the USA still has a chance, but the chance is lessened because Canada is the USA's first or second largest trading partner, defined. It used to be easily the number one trading partner. Now there's different ways of measuring it. The point is, Canada lives rent-free in your attic, okay? We're a beautiful nation, 5,000 kilometers long and a couple of 100 kilometers wide like a ribbon. We're living in your attic rent-free, but we still are your most important trading partner. And if we fuck up, well, it's going to have trickle-down effects to you guys. There's going to be blood coming down the walls from your attic. You guys may not care, and you can brush off the blood off the walls. It still will leave a stain, okay? We want to do this together. We absolutely need to do this together, but it has to be led out of the United States of America. So that's why I want to do everything I can to help educate people to understand the beauty of this solution. Fiat money is a disease, and you got to cleanse the system of this disease, but you can't do it overnight. It's a process. It's a process where Jeff Booths of the world get out there and educate. The Larry Lepards get out there and educate. The DeSantis, Cynthia Loomis, they get up into the upper echelons of government and they educate. So please educate, educate, educate. It is the only solution. So I hope I answered both your questions there. Bitcoin's the only solution I see. Does it mean that it will succeed? No. But we better damn well try it because there's no other alternative. And then secondly, can governments put their thumb in the eye? Yeah, governments do that shit all the time. That's why we need to ensure that there are smart people on, Capitol Hill that will fight for freedom and hope, i.e. Bitcoin.